Hello everyone. Today's session will be about decision-making traps. As we all know, decision-making is one of the major tasks of the manager. So throughout his work, one of his main tasks is to take decisions. And some of these decisions are very critical, they are very general, strategic, while some of the other decisions are very small and they are very tactical. So throughout his career, there are certain traps where the manager can fall into. So you need to be aware of these decision-making traps. Today we will be explaining 9 different traps that managers may fall into. For the first trap, you can see on my left an anchor. Usually, an anchor ties a ship to a specific location. In the case of the business world, there are certain first impressions that actually count. When a manager, he is an HR manager, when he sees certain CVs, just to weed out some other CVs to get some new recruits, he can just see the first information, and then afterwards he would build up a certain first impression on this person, and then he would remove all the others. So this first impression, he's really restricted to what he has at the first place. So he should not do this, and this might be an anchoring trap for him. As for the second trap, it's called the status quo trap. The status quo, people usually, they are used to doing the same things again and again, and they are more comfortable with that. They fear change. So mainly, when there is some change, people should be prepared for that. I might show you a graph here. We can have here the revenues. Here is time. And there we can see the status quo. While whenever the manager is implementing change, this is what happens. And there we can identify this competitive gap. So mainly, whenever the manager is following the status quo, the revenues will decrease over time. But whenever he is open to change, whenever there are changes in the external environment, the revenues will eventually increase over time. And there would a competitive gap will build up on this issue. And there is a saying that states, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. It's very common, but yet you should not be tied up to this statement. As for the third trap, it's called the sunk cost trap. As you can see in this picture, there is a ship which is sinking. So there's no way that it will be floating again. In life, managers tend to invest money, tend to invest time in certain decisions, and yet it's not very fulfilling for them, and they're not reaching their goal. Yet, because there is a certain historical cost, and they are still to believe that this project will eventually be successful. Yet it's not the case. Deep inside, they know that this project won't get anywhere, but yet they are still attached to it. This is the case of escalation of commitment. So in this graph, you have time here, and as time passes by, people become more committed to their decision that they have taken previously, although there are certain facts that does not support that decision. As time passes by, managers would be more attached to their decision. This is the sunk cost trap. In real life, there are the gamblers. When the gamblers go to the casino, they would invest lots of money, hoping to win some money eventually. But yet, instead of winning, they would lose money. And yet, they tend to recover this money through investing more and more money. But yet, eventually, they would also lose. So this is the case also in the real life. The confirming evidence trap. So people look for information that reinforces their argument and clear information that contradicts it. So we see in this picture a man with these eyeglasses. He's so focused. He just wants to to learn some cues which actually reinforces what he is thinking, and other cues which are not according to his own understanding, he would simply tend to reject them and overlook them. This is a very dangerous trap to fall into. As for the framing trap, this is actually a frame. Now I'm inside this frame and now I'm outside of it. So it all depends on this frame. It all depends how the question that you will be posing to your employees or to your colleagues, and that will affect the way the answer that you will get. If the question is ill-framed, it's very likely that you will have an ill or bad decision. So while framing this question the way that you are asking it, it will affect the result that you will get. For instance, a manager would say, how about we don't invest too much budget for this year for our organization? So in a way, he is insinuating that the manager does not want to invest money for the marketing for a marketing campaign for this year. So definitely the board or his colleagues would say, yeah, we're fine with that, so we're not going to increase a marketing budget. This trap is called the estimating and forecasting trap. As we can see here, there's a crystal ball. The manager is holding this, but I don't think that applies in organizations. We cannot just like have an oracle and just tend to predict what's going to happen. We should rely upon facts, information, just to lead us to have accurate results. So mainly in this trap, we will identify three main concepts. It is the overconfidence, overprudence, and the third one is recallability. The first concept is explained by certain managers take decisions and they are successful at the first time. They tend to be successful another time, and then they become really overconfident, and yet that might represent a threat for them. They become overconfident, to a certain extent arrogant, and yet they believe that everything that they would take as a decision, it would be correct and it will be successful. So take care of this. Overprudence, it's totally the opposite of this, of overconfidence. Managers become fearful of taking decisions because long time before, historically, they have taken several decisions and they have failed. So they are fearing to take another decision. While the recallability, it's related to a psychological factor that the manager has lived throughout his life, and it will affect the way he is taking decisions nowadays, something that would remind him about his past. And then in this situation, he's not taking a decision quite correctly and quite understanding the whole situation around this decision. As we can see here, 2 plus 2 equals to 4. And there are lots of mathematical problems. So problem-solving trap. Managers may be faced with big problems and small problems such as this one. So it's not the major task of the manager is to solve problems. He is there, he can interfere, but not too much. He shouldn't delve into the problem and be restricted to only that problem. For sure, he can delegate, and then the manager should think wide, should think about the organization's goals and mission. He shouldn't be tied and restricted to small minor problems which would hinder him from looking at the whole mission for the success of the organization. The dichotomy opportunity trap. You can see that it's either a yes or it's a no. There's no maybe. It's either an A or a B. There's no third choice. Here you are tied up to two only options on the table. So mainly you don't have any choices. It's either a go or no-go decision. So you are very tight on these decision making, and then you don't have any other choice to make up or come up with a different opinion. The last decision-making trap is called pass the buck trap. Here we can see a person who is holding a big buck, and he's passing it over to another person. So mainly what happens here is nobody wants to claim responsibility. This case is very common for large bureaucratic organizations that have many different levels. So nobody wants to claim responsibility. So the proposal is passed over to another level, to another person who has more authority. So they are fearful, in this case, managers are fearful to take decisions and to claim responsibility because they are unaware about the results of their decision. So they tend to pass it along to another level. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.